Hey, family, Reverend Russ, super excited that you decided to join us back again with another Ministry Pivot conversation podcast. Super excited. I have a friend, a brother with me today, Marcus Lomax. You're going to hear more about who he is, but Marcus has been a friend for years. Actually met him in South Florida, but he is a producer extraordinaire. He is your favorite artist, almost probably favorite producer. I may be shaping that more than I should, but he is a blessing to the industry, and he just has a great wealth of experience. And we're going to talk about creativity. We're going to talk about what it means to pivot in seasons of uncertainty. And we're going to talk about way more than that. But don't forget to visit ministrypivot.com. Don't forget to go on to our socials. Don't forget to like, to comment, to share. You'll see the information even now below us. Don't forget to download the show notes. Send us your email address, subscribe so you can get the show notes and you can get other details and updates. But without further ado, let us go ahead with my conversation with Marcus. Hey, thanks everyone for coming back to Ministry Pivot. Reverend Russ here. Super excited that you decided again to join us. I want to jump right in to my conversation with Marcus Lomax, the real Mark Low. I said a little bit, Marcus, about your background, but one, thank you for being on Ministry Pivot today or tonight, whenever people are watching. But if you can just give us a little bit of background on what God has blessed you to be able to do in your sphere, and we'll talk about other stuff. But I know I didn't do your bio justice when I outlined it.
Oh man, Pastor Russ, thanks again for having me. It's so good to reconnect with you and just hang out here for a little bit and chat it up. Yeah, man, it's definitely been a journey, and I've been blessed to be able to write and produce music for a lot of different people, with a lot of different people, a lot of different producers that I've always looked up to, and a lot of different artists that I've always looked up to. Started out, I think, in about 2010 in South Florida, kind of jumping in professionally before I made the jump in 2011 to Los Angeles to further pursue this dream and this passion of mine. I've had and I've been fortunate to work with different artists like Chris Brown and Justin Bieber and Zed and Maren Morris and so many others. But it's kind of crazy that I can consider this my profession, that I wake up and I write music and produce music every day. It's almost like a joke, but it's also important to me. I love it so much. And I think it's so dope that I get to do what I do.
Amen. Amen. I appreciate it. Marcus is being super humble with. I asked him to outline. He didn't outline all of it. Let me say this. Let me just say it this way. The majority, if you're watching, if you're listening, the majority of your favorite artists. I honestly, and I didn't know this. Like, and even like scores of was it what was the animated joint with the Michael Jordan
Space Jam.
Space Jam,
Yeah.
right? Like you had some stuff in that. So
I had a song in that movie. Yeah.
yeah. So he's not going to say it, but I'm gonna link it. Get the show notes. I'm gonna link it in the bio. But Marcus is truthfully blessed. Shout out Marcus. We can't go any further without shouting out your dad. Shout out to Wayne Lomax, Pastor Lomax, pastor of the Fountain of New Life. That's where I met Marcus. So Marcus is, again, your favorite artist knows Marcus, and across genres, right? So not just in one lane, which is what I appreciate about what you're doing. But I want to talk a little bit about, like, in the beginning, not in the beginning for me. So I was blessed to be the youth pastor. He called me Pastor Russ. I was blessed to be the youth pastor at a church in South Florida, the Fountain again. And Marcus's dad, Pastor Wayne Lomax, again, big shout out, Pastor Lomax and Lady T, First Lady. And I met Marcus. We kind of jived. It was cool. And I remember, Marcus, you had a super gift in just music, right? Like, you were helping do a bunch of stuff with back then, what was called the remix, and what we were trying to help out with, and even with the church stuff. And I remember you, but I remember your gift, like, being super large, and like there's but so much we were able to do with it. And I remember you and I actually, and I said this before camera, we tried to put together this little kind of salvation snippet thing to kind of help people see God in a different way. Where Marcus did tracks, I did, like, I not spoken word, but like I spoke over it inside the bedroom. at your dad's house. Now, to Grammy nominated, which is like absolutely nuts. So take me back, and I said a lot, but take me back to how did you know like music was going to be the thing? How did you know that that was going to be something or a place that God has kind of called you to work with?
It was I would have to say, because I've been around music all of my life, whether it be in church from the youngest I could ever remember, or in school, because I went to performing arts schools as a elementary and middle school. I went to performing arts school, so I was in musical theater. Music was
Hmm.
everywhere around me at all times. Plus, my brother, he played trumpet, so it was kind of ingrained in me from a very early age. But I didn't know that it was going to be my profession. It kind of just I feel like God has a way of just placing you where you need to be in the right place at the right time. But I kind of fell in love with it, just making it just for fun. I just
Yeah,
would get in my room and just do that just for fun and for just to expand my imagination and try to recreate the feeling that I got when I heard music, when I listened to like Stevie Wonder or Donny Hathaway. It's like I want to be a part of that some kind of way. So I guess it wasn't until probably about I wish I could tell you an exact moment, an exact
yeah,
aha moment where it's like, oh, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life or
yeah,
for a greater portion of my life. But somewhere along the line, when I started collaborating with others and realized that, okay, I can actually create music that could exist in the world and that could be on at professional level. And that's kind of when I started realizing, okay, I want to pursue this further, like past a hobby, and make it something that I actually do for a living, and give people records that they can actually put on their albums and go and perform in arenas. And that's another thing when I hear people perform records in a live venue, and I feel the reaction. I feel people just like healing and just like escaping from just the hardships of life. I'm like, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of just like the solution, and then just like the remedy of just like hurt and pain, and just like giving people a reason to put their hands up or get a little dance on. That's how I want to be a part of that. So I feel like at some point when I started creating, collaborating, and feeling those moments, that's when I knew.
yeah. No, that's great. Let me pause and ask you a question, because you said something, and I want, for those who are watching, those who are listening, the whole thing of Ministry Pivot, the whole thing is this is your season of opportunity, but sometimes the opportunity may look different, right, based on how you came to it. And you said something that I remember you doing music all the time, and then I remembered toward the end of my time in South Florida, and I guess you were about to transition, that you did start to partner with some people,
Yeah.
because you were doing it like solo for a minute. And
Hmm.
then I remembered you started to partner with some people. And I want to talk about that, because I think for some of us, really for many of us, what blocks us from being able to pivot well is because we pivot solo. There's a book I'll put in the show notes. This guy, Steve Case, used to be the CEO of AOL, has a book called The Third Wave. I've talked about it before on this podcast, but he literally says that AOL, one of the reasons that they didn't succeed was because they missed key partnerships, because they thought they were like the biggest thing and nothing could take them down. Sounds like Blockbuster, right? And Netflix. But can you just take us back a little bit to that? Like, why? How did that pivot happen when you said I want to partner with, I assume, some like-minded people to kind of go to the next space?
Yeah. It honestly started just being in my neighborhood. And I started out making music just by myself in my room. I'm like, who else does this? Who else can I bounce ideas off of? And just like,
Yeah,
it takes me back to like when my dad would be like, if you want to get better in basketball, you got to go out amongst them. You got to go out and play with people that are better than you. So in the point where I was trying to learn, which is still now, and I'm still copying this pattern now, trying to get in the rooms with people who know different things than I do. Um, it's like, how can I surround myself with those who know different things? I can expand my horizons, and I know I'm going to also bring something to the table as well. So I feel like that was a really important moment to pivot into collaborating with other creators, for sure.
that's awesome. And again, we met in South Florida, and South Florida is always going to be a great spot, right? Like you can always do a lot in South Florida. There's a lot of influence, a lot of melting. But I'm from Brooklyn, but when I came to South Florida, I realized that this is a thing.
Yeah,
And so you partnered with them, and then help me and help us, right? Understand how did that process? Because I remember the day, and I was sharing again this off camera when we talked a little while ago. I remember when you said, "Yo, I'm gonna go to LA. Like I've done what I couldn't do here. There's some opportunities."
yeah,
But you literally now, of course, being a preacher's kid, you were brought up in a house of faith, right? So
yeah,
you had an understanding of God covering, protecting. But help us understand what were some key pivots in that, because you left from South Florida,
yeah.
you grew up, knew, had foundation, and you went to LA. And I don't know if you had like a ton of family out there or a ton of structure out there. Like, help us just talk about that for a little while, if you could.
Well, yes and no, because when I made the move to LA, well, let's take it back. So before I moved to LA, my pattern was I was working at Bank of America. I would go to work at Bank of America, and then I would go to the studio
That's right.
and work all night and be just so super tired that I can't hardly keep my eyes open the next day. And at that point, I was working with my partners who we created a team together, the Monsters and Strangers, and it was just like a daily thing: go to work and then go work at the studio. So that was my schedule for at least a year and a half. So when we all picked up and moved to LA, it wasn't that much of a change because I actually moved with Bank of America from Florida to California, and my same pattern was to go to work and then go to the studio with these guys and then continue just honing the craft and trying to make progress. But I didn't have necessarily family like I did, here. I had one family friend maybe, but other than that, it was just pretty much I was diving straight into the music, and my social life wasn't, that active at all.
Yeah.
But it definitely helped me to stay in contact with my family and get on the phone every now and then, which that actually helped me really stay grounded. But having that core group of guys that I moved from Florida with to LA definitely made things seem a little bit more normal than just going and not knowing anybody out here at all.
Yeah, no, that's great. I didn't know that you all. So that's cool. You all moved like a unit out there. So I'm sure that was super helpful.
Yeah.
What are some of the pivots you had to make? So at what point did you tell Bank of America, "I appreciate it, um, but I'm good now"?
I think it was like a year and a half after being out here. And
Okay.
that was literally a pivot moment because, you know, I was burning the midnight oil still, but even crazier because this was even more higher stakes. Um, but it came to a point where I was like, I either have to sink or swim doing this. And I'm not going to be able to accomplish what I want to accomplish by just I don't want to say half doing what I was doing, but not giving the amount of time that I knew it took to accomplish those goals in music. So I saved up as much money as I could to hold me down for a few months, knowing that the music business is very fickle and it's really hard to actually materialize something into funds,
Yeah.
especially earlier in your career when you don't have as many supporters and believers in what you do. But it came to a point where it's just like either this is gonna work for me or I'll have to figure something else out. So I took that jump and that leap of faith, and it's still working out so far.
That's dope, man. And I think, we also have shout out to the Ellis family and Kendall. Kendall was on episode, I wrote it down, 14, so I wouldn't forget. Kendall was on, and so she's, multi Olympian. I don't even know if that's how you say that.
Yeah,
But she had to make the jump too. And I remember talking with her, and her jump was like, "Hey, like, school is over. I'm really good. This is gonna work, but like I've got to figure that season out." So I say that to lead into this next question, right? For those who are listening, for those who are watching, and they know that it's that time, right? Because you came with a little bit of a cushion, right? And let me say this: Reverend Russ is not saying you should quit your job, because I don't got no job to give you.
I
But
feel that.
what I am saying is there was a moment that you, Kendall, as well, others who are watching us, others who've been on the podcast, that you had to say it's either like now or never, right? And my question is kind of what did you feel? What was going on? What kind of things can you point to say, obviously it's a faith thing, that you could say, I saw God in these kind of moves, because that had to be a lot. And I believe that there are probably some memories or some moments that stand up. So when you when you took the stretch of faith to leave Bank of America and say, I'm gonna do this full time, like what was the first like big thing that popped? Like who was the first artist, or what was the first thing that kind of went to be able to be in your to be able to add to your bag, quote unquote, right? To say, okay, I can see it.
I think there was a lot of small things. There was a lot of small things. Like there was a couple artists. They're probably notable now, but there was a couple artists on Disney, Hollywood Records, which is Disney's label, that
Hmm.
the head of the label gave us a shot as young producers and writers to work on the projects. They weren't big acts at the time, but um, we got some believers in the business, which helped fuel us to keep going. So we worked on this Demi Lovato song, and we worked on a Selena Gomez song and a Zendaya song. So those three songs really helped us to kind of like get our confidence going and just like get our feet under us. So that was helpful. And it's like, okay, now we're actually in the business. These are records that are released. Let's just keep going and push this thing as far as we can, as far as we can push it. But that really gave us the confidence, some confidence that we needed to keep the train moving forward.
That's dope. That's dope. That's dope. Now, as you um are moving through, right, and you're in this producer realm, are there any things that has um any pivots that have stretched you? And let me try to qualify that. Stretched you as like some stuff that you said, nah, I'm not gonna do that. And then you end up in this frame of music, or in this frame of opportunity. I think about Quincy Jones, genius, right? And I read his book, his most recent book, and I didn't realize how many things he was a part of, right? But I think like one thing led to another, and then he realized he was good in this thing too, and then he kept going. I wanted, but you can tell from the onset that that wasn't what he was looking to do, right? Like even being like the act wasn't what he was looking to do. So I hope that that question made sense.
Um, so yeah, it was definitely at the very beginning of my career. I didn't have a full understanding. I didn't even know people could write songs for other people. I didn't even know that was a thing. I just thought it was just making music and everybody just made their own music. But
Yeah,
once I realized that, I kind of shifted my mindset from just being an artist and just making music to release myself to being able to write and produce for other people. And that was a pivot because I had to learn to serve the artist and to serve the goal of the artist and the label every time I get in the room for another project. So that was definitely a stretch on my creativity and my understanding of music making.
that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. I'm gonna ask you a quick question that's not on the list, but it comes to mind, and I want to see what's like your like creative rhythm. So like when I'm writing sermons, right, I like to listen to something, and I listen to the same song, or I pick a song and I'm over and over again as I'm looking at the text, as I'm typing. I have a cup of coffee. My coffee is hot Kool-Aid, so it's not real coffee. It's like super light skinned coffee. It's crazy. But like that's my thing. Like that's kind of the what's like Marcus, what's like your like creative space? Because I've seen, I follow you, obviously I followed you before all this, but I follow you, and I've seen you like in different spaces with different artists. But like what's like your create, or what are some keys, let me say it that way, what are some keys to like the creative process for you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of I feel like I have the most efficiency when I kind of set um, I'm shooting at the dartboard as opposed to like just throwing something in the ocean. So having some sort of like direction to go into the creative process. There's an artist that I'm like, oh, that would be cool if she did something like Whitney Houston in '95. I would just listen to a bunch of Whitney Houston from that time and try to get in that mode and get in that mindset. And I'll go into deep dives too and just kind of figure out what they were thinking and what when they created those records that I'm trying to shoot for, like what inspired them, and I'll go crate dig and I'll go listen to music and just kind of get in the spirit of, like what they were thinking when they were in the studio, and then I would bring that into now, and like how can I take this into the next era of music for like next year, because music that I make now is not going to usually come out until a good 6 to 9 months from now. So
Pause for that. Talk about that, because that part people don't get, right?
yeah,
Like they don't get, because we don't plan as well as we should, right? But in the industry you're in, and even in like the movie industry, I'm assuming some of that stuff was way done, way beyond that. Like, talk about that part. Like, how do you create something trying to think through what's like going to be hot or dope? I don't even know if those terms work anymore. I use
they
those all
do.
the time.
I do too.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, like how do you do that? Like how do you get your mind to think through like what's going to come?
It's I think it's mostly about, for me, not getting caught up in the trends and what's hot right now. Because if you do that,
Good.
then you're gonna be late. You're gonna be already past the time that it's happening. So not getting caught up in what's hot on the radio, what's hot on TikTok right now. Although just being aware of that, being aware of what's going on and being aware of what happened in the past, and also being aware of where you feel like things are headed, and just following your instincts, just taking all those things into consideration.
That's good. That's good. I'm going to say this. Marcus didn't say this. This is the preacher is going to say this. That I think a lot of times we get too stuck in what's now, and we're trying to figure out what's now. But like you said, be able to understand what's now, but know that if you try to grab what's now, you're late already. That, bro, I'm going to use that. Tell you that right now, easily. I'm going to use that. I'm going to give you and your dad credit, but I'm going to use that joint. But because I think so often, like we see stuff, and I know we try to, like, unfortunately, not like mimic, but copy to an extent.
Yeah,
And that's not it, because if you're trying to, you're literally copying what they worked on 6 months ago.
yeah,
You just hearing it right now.
yep,
But I think that's the cool thing, is that's like, and also an encouragement, right?
yeah,
Under Ministry Pivot, I always say that this is our season of opportunity, that it's your opportunity to create what has not been created, right?
yeah,
To do what no one is thinking about. But if you tap in, if you get into that zone, if you understand, I'm always going to say, and you'll back it, that God is allowing you to kind of push through, then you can do it. But you've got to be in that space. Like, I love that you said that you got to have. It's not throwing it into the ocean; it's throwing it onto a board. Like having an aim, having a target. Like,
mhm,
that's super dope.
yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you this as we get ready to. I got a couple questions that we're gonna line down, because I know how my the platform works. People tap out after a couple of minutes.
Okay.
But let me ask you, what I think up to this point has been like, wow, that's big. Like what moment? And I'm sure you got a lot of them, so you can list two or three of them. I'm sure. I'm gonna tell you, I hit you on the Space Jam joint. I forgot about it, because I mean, I see what you're doing and moving with the space. I'm like, yo, this is gonna live forever. Because like Space Jam is like, I mean, and music will live forever. But like, you already know. Like I think Karis was like 4 or 5, and I'm like, I'm gonna take her to a movie, and I know a dude who wrote a song. Like, that's nuts.
That's crazy to me too. It's crazy to me too. And that was one of my favorite movies growing up too. So that was just. But the thing about it, I knew that they were working on that soundtrack for like 2 years, and I had the brief of what they were looking for in the soundtrack on my hard drive, not my hard drive, my desktop from my computer. So every day when I opened up my computer, I would see that.
Wow,
Yeah, and
that's
visualize it and
crazy.
manifest that I would have a song on that project, and God made it so.
Hey man, that's crazy. That's crazy. So is that a moment? Is there another like moment where you're like, and I mean, I know you're not, the Lord, you're not done, so you got more stuff. But like, is there a moment that it's like, wow, like
Yeah,
this is dope.
yeah, it has to be going to a concert. Man, I guess most recently, still, it happens all the time, but in different ways. But I went to the Justin Bieber concert, and not only for me, because I know a lot of people who worked on the project, and I
Hmm.
came up with them, and I saw like everything they did to get to where they're at, right alongside me.
Yeah.
But just seeing him perform my song at a where the Lakers play basketball, and hearing all of these people sing the words that I remember sitting in my apartment, just on my couch writing on Zoom in the pandemic, sing these words that I came up with and listen to these sounds that came out of my computer. It's just kind of crazy.
That's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
definitely like, okay, this is one of the reasons that I do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do those moments make you like, I gotta go harder? Like, I
hundred
gotta do the
percent,
next thing. It
a
does.
hundred percent, a
Yeah.
100%. It's fuel. It's so much fuel every time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you
I
just want to
think that
do it again.
exactly.
Yeah,
I think that's a big deal as we look at pivoting and ministry pivot. That God will show you moments to be able to say, I got you. Like, I'm with you. Like, and there's more in you, right? Like, you just got to be willing. The whole premise of ministry pivot was that text in Moses, and Moses said, well, how am I gonna tell these people? And God said, what's in your hand,
yeah,
right? Exodus 4, some change. He said, what's in your hand? And because he discounted this staff, and God created that joint in like two, three different things that he didn't even know it was possible. And I think those moments are those, like, I think for us, like, again, shout out, I didn't shout out shout out to my pastor at our church, Kingdom Fellowship. And, we moved into this, multi-million dollar building, and hundreds of people are getting saved and joining the church, and it's super dope. And I look around, and I consistently tell the team, like, this is not it. Like, this is dope. Don't get me wrong,
hmm
but this is not it. Like,
yeah,
there's more that God wants to do and God needs to do through us. So appreciate it. Let's thank God for it, but don't get comfortable. Like,
yeah,
let's keep moving forward.
yeah.
Um, that's dope, man. That's dope. So let me ask you this last two questions. That's kind of the same, but a little bit different. Um, what are some of your, I'm gonna say it this way, pun intended, pivotal inspirations? Like, who are some of your pivotal inspirations? And then the second question is, what are some like resources or books? Like, how do you get excited? Everybody has those days like, yo, I don't want to do nothing, bro. Like, just leave me. But like, what are some of the books and resources that you use to kind of get you excited about moving forward? So the first is like, who are some of your pivotal influences? And then the second one is like, what are some of the resources that you would share with those who are in the music industry or not, but just kind of things that you think are helpful for them?
One of my biggest inspirations, definitely, you already brought him up, is Quincy Jones. I have a portrait of him hanging in my crib. I just love Quincy, and just like
Yeah.
the way he was able to do so many different things across music and film scoring and television, and just like all the different types of music, from It's My Party, I Can Cry If I Want to Herbie Hancock to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song. Like, it's just like, so, and it's no like, it's what's great music, what's going to get the people excited. I love that about Quincy Jones. And most recently I read his book 12 Notes of Life on Life and Creativity.
Yep.
And I knew a lot of the stories, but just hearing them again and hearing some of the things I never knew about him and his journey really inspired me. And I think you don't have to be a musician or want to be in music to actually take something away from that book. It's more just about life, and just like turning your situation into triumph and success, and just surrounding yourself with positivity. That book is really amazing to me. I love it, and it's a small read. It's a quick read. But I like to always look at interviews of people I admire on YouTube, and that always gets me hype, and just like hear where they were in their journey in the moment of their interview, whether it be like in the 50s or the 90s or today. I love history, and like looking how people actually did what they were trying to do, or struggled to do what they were trying to do, and just like hear them tell it, or hear somebody tell it about them. I love interviews, love books. Yeah, that's where I get my motivation from, for sure.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, man, I appreciate it. One last thing, how I'm gonna link for those of you watching, listening. I'm gonna link all of the resources that Marcus laid out, as well as his social stuff, so you can follow him. But anything that's Anything that, how can people kind of contact you? You do anything different, special around that, or just follow you on IG and they'll be able to see what's rocking?
That's it. That's basically it, man. I'm there. I'm not on there all the time, but I'm on there quite a bit. Yeah.
That's what's up. That's
Yeah,
what's
man.
up. Well, Marcus, man, thanks again for getting on the Ministry Pivot, man.
Of
Super
course.
excited about all that God is doing currently, and what is to come, man. And looking forward to connecting with you. I got to get out there anyway, so we'll try to get up there. But
Let me
definitely
know.
super excited for all that is happening. Thanks again for stopping by on Ministry Pivot.
Thanks so much for having me, brother, and congratulations on this amazing podcast, bro.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Man, wasn't that a great conversation? Marcus is super creative, super dope, and I'm super excited about all that he shared. Don't forget about what he talked about being creative. Don't forget about what he talked about and making sure that you aren't so focused on now that you miss what God is doing later. And of course, don't forget to download the show notes. Don't forget to like, to comment, to share, to subscribe. Don't forget to go on to ministrypivot.com so that you can get more podcasts, more conversations, also articles. And don't forget about Ministry Pivot University. Pivot University coming soon, but between the end of this year. Super excited about all that God is doing. Thanks again for joining us today. And don't forget that this is your season of opportunity. God bless.